What is up, everybody? Welcome back to RC's Gateway to Comics. Today, we are going to be talking about the problem of having similarly named characters. And this is something that I have discovered slightly with my stories, but it's not something that I can change right now, unfortunately. It's just something that I will keep in mind for future stories that I'm going to put out, and definitely will be an ongoing process for the rest of the Red Sky series. Now, whenever you create a name for a character, you'll usually go through a process of deciding if you want that name to have a specific sound to it, or if it has a meaning behind it, or even if it just looks right. And a lot of times, what you will want to avoid is having similar names for your characters. So, say you're writing a romance novel and you have the main character be named like Alicia. And you are going through a list of names for the side characters that are going to be accompanying Alicia in this book, and you'll come across the name Sophia. I would say ignore that one, disregard it entirely, and move on to something else. Because having that Alicia and Sophia both sound similar, that it could be annoying and confusing. It's sort of like having a guy character be like Rob and Rob, and having one of his friends be named Bob. It's too similar. It flows much too closely with whenever you're reading it, and it can cause problems. One of the things that I have said before in videos is that you don't want to make your reader think too much. You want them to be able to flow with the story as they are reading it and be able to picture it in their head. And whenever you have stuff like this happening, like very similarly named characters or stuff that repeats itself, then it can stick out in the reader's mind and it can cause problems. Like if you have Rob and Bob and Alicia and Sophia all talking in one room in one scene, and you have to try and figure out who's talking to who and what they're saying, and you have to constantly put Sophia said, or Alicia said, or Bob replied, or Rob said this, then it's going to be supremely annoying. And it can look like a puzzle. It's something that you want to avoid entirely. And, well, you want to avoid it 99% of the time. If the characters are like twins, like Tweedledee and Tweedledum, then it is a little bit more acceptable. But if they're just other characters that don't bear any relation to each other, then it can be quite frustrating having to read all of these different but similar names. So if you wanted to get your reader to instantly see these characters as separate characters, then make sure to name them different. I would even go so far as to say, don't name characters with the same first letter in their names. And this is something that I have made the mistake of doing, and it's at a point where I can't really change it, where I have two characters right now in my books. You have Captain Riggs, for one, main character, and a side character who's the master gunner of the Red Sky, whose name is Ripper. Now, both of these names start with R-I, and they both have 2 middle letters. Riggs has G, and Ripper has 2 P's. And that, so far, hasn't caused any confusion, because they're not always in the same scenes. Also, Riggs is sort of like a young pirate captain, and Ripper is a Jamaican master gunner who has a Jamaican accent, so there's no real confusing their speech patterns. So that helps to make sure that they are seen as separate characters. And usually Ripper's in scenes with another character named Coral Jack. Thankfully, I have separated them enough that they are able to be seen as their own characters, and it hasn't really been a problem of confusing them at all. And from the people who have read the books, they haven't really seen that as a problem with those 2 characters. But if I was to make them both similar characters, like having them both be side characters and both be like similar speaking, then that would be extremely frustrating for me to read, even if it was my own work. Thankfully, I have not done that. So, what I would say to keep in mind whenever you are naming characters to keep them from having this issue is to make sure that the names that you are picking out sound different. So in the example that I had given you before with like the Alicia and Sophia, maybe pick like Alex and Sophia, because Alex can still be a girl's name, or Elise and Sophia. That is enough of a separation that it can still work, and your audience won't get confused by the outright similarities with like Alicia and Sophia. Again, the IA at the end is what would be throwing it off entirely. Also, with having a similar size name, then that can also cause some issues. So I would say try to keep in mind how a name sounds, how it's spelled, and how long it is. And if it seems like it is way too similar, definitely make that change. Because Lord knows there is plenty of names out there that you can choose from. And it will definitely be much easier for your audience to pick out that character from the words on your page. And they'll be able to immediately create that separation between characters and give them their own identities. It's a lot easier whenever the names are able to be seen as different. Now, I am curious to hear what you guys' thoughts are on these similar named characters. I've given you my thoughts. I want to hear about yours. Have you ever made similar mistakes whenever it came to creating a project where you had 2 similarly named characters? If you did, I want to hear that down in the comment section below, and maybe see what your remedies are for that problem. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to put out more videos like this. Also, I would very much appreciate it if you guys checked out my fiction books, the Red Sky series. It is a story about a pirate, Captain Riggs, and his crew aboard the Red Sky as they sail the seas to try to become the most notorious pirates, who are also fighting against the English Navy and encountering various magical beings throughout their voyages. All the while that this is happening, Riggs is trying to win the heart of Julia Hammond, the daughter of an English Commodore. So you can see where the issues would be with that. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see all of you in the next video. Peace out.